This is Billy Daniel Bunter. Welcome to mine and my daughter's new podcast. What have you called it?
Rave Generations.
Rave Generations. And she's come up with this idea, Dad, we've got to do a podcast, because basically she started DJing and she's getting some really good gigs and she's got lots of questions of, how do I do this? How do I do that? What do you do when this happens and that happens? And also she's coming under hate from the internet, which she's also asking me, well, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? So we have a new podcast, up and coming DJ, 35-year career as a DJ, and we hope you enjoy whatever we talk about, because I have no idea what she's gonna ask me.
So this is the first time I've ever done a video with you, so let's just kick things off by asking how you started your rave journey and what that looks like for you, because obviously people watching you and knowing you, they know your backstory, but the whole point of this is to introduce my age group, my generation, and sort of talk about the differences back then from when you first started to now. So how did your DJ journey start?
Well, my DJ journey started through an absolute love for music, and incidentally, and I didn't plan this t-shirt here, the Electro series, these records behind us, that album there, Electro 5, was the first album your Grandad, my dad, ever introduced me to, which made me fall in love with the concept of DJing. So basically these albums in the mid-80s, the Electro Street Sounds albums, were the first time I was exposed to electronic rap music, underground music, but mixed in a syncopated way. And it had me hooked. It had me hooked on the concept of DJing, basically. Fast forward to the rave scene, which was a good 5, 6, 7 years after your Grandad introduced me to those albums. And I found myself thrust into the illegal world of rave. Like in 88, 89, the rave scene at large was a very illegal scene. Ecstasy had first sort of come along and become a big thing in clubs. The rave scene, as everyone knows it now, as the rave dance scene, electronic music, house, drum and bass, whatever you want to call it, then was this very specialist underground thing that you went to illegal warehouses, you went to illegal field events. Clubs closed at 2 back in those days, so you didn't even have a 4 a.m. club license or a 6 a.m. or an 8 a.m., let alone all dayers and all nighters and full things. Incidentally, all dayers were actually a thing back then, but in the way that you know clubbing, raving, whatever you want to call it now, was totally different. And how I got my break was I started in a record shop in 1989, in which this record shop in East London, Whitechapel, was the hub of many illegal warehouse promoters who were putting on all the illegal first wave of raves in and around London, and also many of the first wave of promoters and people who run pirate radio stations. Remember, pirate radio, it was illegal to play your music. It was illegal to play a legal warehouse and field raves. And the people who I was meeting and started me out were old football hooligans. And a lot of the stories that are written about the rave scene from that time, about football hooligans, about the original illegal warehouse scene, that is how I got my break in the rave scene, via Joe Labyrinth, Phil Desire. Even to this day now, I'm on Centreforce Radio, which is run by Andy Swallow, and all of these names back in those days were synonymous with the old football hooliganism, but also this whole warehouse rave scene. You asked, what did it look like then? It looked totally different to it does now. Then there was no career path for a DJ. There was no there were no rules, none of the rules that your generation knows, had been written. All of the mistakes were made on us, and none of us had intentions of being career DJs. We just lived for the weekend.
So you briefly touched on the illegal raves back then.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have so many stories, and I've heard a few here and there. What are some standout stories from you from the illegal raves back in the day?
Well, I come in just see, my moment in time is very interesting. It was the illegal warehouse promoters Labyrinth and 2000 AD who gave me my break. But where my story gets interesting is that the police and the government and just groups that were set up to stop illegal raves by the end of 1989, I missed that section. I was working in a record shop and I was only 14. Some of the first raves I went to was Labyrinth at Silver City and various events, but I never DJ'd at them. And then when I met Labyrinth, it was literally at the cusp of when the illegal raves had pretty much come to a halt. And this was before hardcore, before jungle, before all of the musics that split off and you hear now. And my journey and my legacy with Labyrinth started in that period where they said the rave scene would never happen, it would never last, we're stopping it. Even the magazines and the press and the newspaper said this. They called it an evil cult. This evil cult cannot last. And in 1990 in London, in the year 1990, there was hardly any events happening. So you had Labyrinth 2000 AD at the Four Aces, you had Orange at Camden Palace, which shut at 2 a.m, by the way. Coco, as you know, it goes all day and all night now. It was Camden Palace then, it was shut at 2 a.m. You had Groove Rider and Fabio were residents at a night called Rage on a Thursday night. Toward the latter end of 1990, there was Telepathy that come along as a weekly club. In 1991, AWOL come along. There was a few house music clubs, but there was very little then, and that was my starting point. And mad stories, when you're resident at a club at the age of 15 in Dalston, which was the front line and a place you shouldn't have gone to party. Oh, the mad stories are endless, from your granddad discovering ecstasy through to sometimes back in them, because clubs would police themselves as well, promoters would police themselves, and it was a completely different time. And yeah, from like gangs trying to come into the Labyrinth and sell drugs or mug people, and some night, you know, sometimes you'd leave Dalston and you'd see those people at the end of like the street or a mile up the road on the side of the road with broken legs for going into a club and misbehaving. It was a different time. The stories of madness are endless, but ultimately for me it was always about the music.
Yeah. So just to touch on, obviously that is an iconic piece of history and that can't be recreated now in this generation.
Never.
But there are people that try to put on illegal raves and put things on like that. I think I just had said to you about people have broken into the Ministry of Sound toilets,
which is
earlier on this week,
yeah,
and tried to put on, you know, a rave in there that got shut down.
Yeah.
What do you think of people trying to recreate that and do the illegal raves when obviously now it is licensed, you can go and put on a party yourself? Look,
ultimately music reflects people's lives and people's creativity and where people are at in their headspace. And on one end of the scale, music has always one end of the musical scale, music can represent anarchy and creation and pushback, and like our music is decadent. But then on the other end of the scale, look at some of the silly pop music that's been along the way. So music represents people's vibes and feelings. So dance music, electronic music, club culture has moved on at such a rapid rate, where you have such a commercial end of the scale with festivals and electronic dance music, but inevitably on the underground you're going to have young people and even old people still who want to break into warehouses, who want to break into places and put events on. And for me, it always puts a smile on my face to hear it. Like when you said about Ministry of Sound, it's like, oh, brilliant. Because there was a time when I was signed to Ministry of Sound, and I mixed out, the gold discs and that are over in that corner. And it always puts a smile on my face to know that there is still a decadent generation out there surrounding dance music who are willing to push back and are willing to have some anarchy and are willing to do what they want.
Yeah. So one of the major things, obviously, we're here to talk about is the vinyl versus digital debate.
Right.
So does being a vinyl DJ make you a real DJ? As someone who has come solely from vinyl, they didn't have CDJs and all this digital stuff back in the day. That's where you learnt on. Dad actually had told me that when he first started out DJing, he couldn't mix. Am I okay to say that?
Of course you are. I make no bones about it. I'm actually really proud of it.
So yeah, does being a vinyl DJ make you a real DJ? And also one thing, do you think the audience can feel a difference between someone doing a digital set and doing a vinyl set? What is your opinion on someone who's been doing this for over 35 years?
Right. I, hand on heart, right, as a professional, full-time rave old school DJ, and when this is my 35th year of doing this, right? Yeah. And in that 35 years, I have never had any other job other than when I was thrown out of school and I had to do some jobs for like 6 months or so. I am a full-time old school rave dance music DJ. My diary is, well, you come in the house and you hear mine and mum's meetings about bookings and gigs and stuff. So my diary every weekend, we're in March, at the time of doing this, we're in March 2025. My diary is packed every weekend till the end of this year and going on into next year. I am one of even in the world of old school, I'm still one of the only DJs who goes out and does some vinyl sets professionally. I don't mean as a hobbyist, I mean professionally. Mm-hmm. But I play a lot of digital sets as well, professionally. So for me, the medium is absolutely irrelevant. The music will always be what's important to me, and I've moved with the times. I've gone from vinyl to digital to vinyl to back to digital, and I've watched the CDJ. You saw some CDJs.
Yeah, that is something I want to touch on.
She saw some pictures of me the other day DJing from about 18 years ago, where the CDJs had no titles and no waveforms and no USBs on them, and that blew her away. So
I didn't fall in as to, it took me a moment to process. I was thinking, where's his USBs? How does he know what song's coming next? And then I fell in, CDJs, right next to him, he had a CD pouch of hundreds of CDs.
Correct.
And obviously, so you've moved with the times.
So I've moved with absolutely all of the times, and I see, and look, not only have I moved with the times and are willing to do vinyl sets, USB sets, there was times up to 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, when vinyl had died, where literally I was one of the only people still releasing records. So I'd release records from Ragga Twins, I'd release records from Mark Archer, I'd release records from myself and Sanction and Liquid. This was way before the vinyl boom, right? So I am, if anyone is going to say to you, if anyone is going to say to you, when you think of the music I represent, the career that I've had, the fact that I play vinyl, if anyone is going to say to you, vinyl DJs do it better, you're not a real DJ unless you do vinyl. Vinyl sounds better, but it would be me. But actually, I'm completely the opposite. The music is what happens and is what is most important. And as a full-time professional DJ, I can turn on the creativity on the 1210s or the CDJs. And when I see, I'm sorry if this offends anyone, bitter old men who had a load of records in their loft, forgot all about their records in a loft, then have got them out during COVID, or the vinyl boom has come back and all of a sudden they're reliving their youth, and they have an opinion on real DJs play vinyl, you're not a DJ, you're a button pusher. It's ridiculous. It's absolute rubbish. Ultimately, the music is what counts, and I find it incredibly sad when I see grown men, and it's not, I don't just see them doing it. I actually come under fire as well from grown men. You've seen it. Like if I do a digital mix with like 20 tunes in 10 minutes, he's not a real DJ. He's not a real DJ. And I've put up videos in the past where people have thought on a digital set my CDJs ain't turned on and stuff like that. And for you're in a very interesting age in which never before in recent times have we seen so many female DJs. Like when I was younger, you had Lisa Loud, Nancy Noyes, you had Sarah HB, you had the Killer Pussies, you had DJ Rap, you had Chemistry and Storm. It would be hard to keep on listing names and names and names of female DJs, and in this era that we have, there is so many. And sadly is the word. Like I look down it, like I've got a young French DJ I wasn't aware of, Helen Frey, and she was playing a bootleg of one of my old tracks, a French hard techno DJ, and she had millions of plays and views on what she was doing. And people just hate on it. You're just a button push. If someone's good looking or glamorous, these bitter old men just get the ump because they had some records in their loft once. And I'm sorry, these young ladies shouldn't have to apologise because you own some records, and I shouldn't apologise that I'm sorry that I play digital as well as vinyl. But when you've done something for 35 years and are still packing the crowds out, whether they're small crowds in Birmingham or Southampton, or I'm playing main stage at Clockwork Orange or main sets at Clockwork Orange and Moon Dance and big festivals like Boomtown, I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologise for all the hard work I've put in that allows me to play the music I love however I want. And these younger people, because they're not doing it how you think it should be done, should apologise. Maybe your record shouldn't have sat up in your loft for all them years, and maybe you should have given it an actual go.
That's the thing with anything, and putting yourself out there, putting yourself on the internet, you're inviting yourself for those kind of comments and for that hate. But I think what we were so shocked by was the sheer amount of, and this probably will offend people, it was grown middle-aged men that were commenting, like you're saying, the vinyl is the real DJing and all that stuff, and it just, they have so much to say about somebody else putting themselves out there, but they're not doing that. I saw one guy who called you a silly little girl, who didn't even know you. But I did a post for after last year's Boomtown, a tongue-in-cheek jokey post, as I do. You know me, you know me better than anyone. You unfortunately,
your mum and your nan know me better than anyone. And I just did a jokey post of, like, because I put up a post from Boomtown of me mixing two records. I think it was a Ram record and a General Levy record, and people were in it going, the CDJs aren't even turned on, but the sun was shining down.
You
come with me, the sun was shining down, and so there was just this wave of people. But then in my defence was this other wave of people going, that's Billy Daniel Bunter, he's been around 35 years, he plays vinyl sets and digital sets. And in the internet world, it's impossible to please everyone. And ultimately, anyone, whether it's you at your stage, whether it's me at my stage, we just have to do what we believe in. And sadly, and it's always been the case, you're gonna come across people who don't like it.
Yeah, I think one of the comments I got was actually just a general comment about saying how now DJing is so easily accessible to everyone. Do you think that because it is not easily accessible, but obviously a lot of more people want to do it, it is easier to invest in a small controller and learn and teach yourself? Right. Does that take away from the craft and the skill that goes behind DJing, or is it just...
Listen, here is the thing, and I learnt this a long time ago, and I've been to universities, music schools, all kinds of places, and given talks about music. Luck and looks is never enough to take you all of the way. You have to have something about you with your music, right? Now, granted, it's never been so easy to line up two records at 128 BPM or 180 BPM. You only have to look at the screen now and go, right, there's my drum and bass tempo set, there's my house set, or there's my hard dance set, or there's my rave set, my break set, and you line it up, boom, sync, no sync, however you want to do it. But then it's the level of creativity that you put into it. It's then the level of vibe.
Your song selection.
Your vibe. It's your song selection.
Reading the crowd. And ultimately, yes, you could argue that it's easier to do it because you don't have to leave your house to go and buy records like we used to do. You can sit on all of the download sites and get your tunes. You don't have to put tapes out or CDs, and many people don't make music anymore and release it. However, there's never been so many people who know how to do it. So if you can stand out in a world where there's... I was talking to Nicky Blackmarket about this a little while ago, and we were trying to work out when we were starting out in 1991 how many DJs there were within London doing the rave, the bleeps, the breakbeat, the house. And Nicky his mind was working and mine was working, and he was saying, I don't think there was more than 200 of us across all the seats. Think about that. I might be wrong as well. Wasn't DJing like early seen as like uncool? Maybe not in the rave scene, but before it became a rave thing.
It was very uncool.
Yeah.
DJing was very uncool. You'd be put in a corner and no one could potentially see you. And yeah, imagine that. Now we've got an event at the weekend that we're running, and there's nearly 150 artists on it, DJs, MCs, PAs, and Nicky Blackmarket was saying to me, I don't think there was more than 200 of us in 1991 playing out every weekend in and around London.
That's crazy.
And yeah, DJing not only was back then was we sometimes put in the corner, or you know, my residency at Labyrinth every Friday and Saturday, the club would have thousands of people in it a month, but all I could see was the stage, which held 50 or 60 people, and a bit of the dance floor below me, which would hold, I would see 40 people. The rest of the club in these 10 other rooms, I never see.
Yeah.
I never ever see. And the other thing as well, how we were considered as DJs is the amount of promoters who would give us the runaround for our money. And that doesn't really happen anymore, and it doesn't happen in the world of agents and professionalism and career paths, you know?
I think that's one thing I want to touch on is now obviously in this generation and up and coming DJs, social media is essentially your portfolio, and people look at how many followers you have, people look at what kind of content you're putting out, all of that kind of stuff. But back in your day, what did you do to get noticed, to stand out?
Right.
What was the process of like saying to a promoter, you know, I'm a DJ, how would you give them your mixes? And
right, so this is a really interesting question in the modern day and age. And again, my thought process as a 50-year-old man and with a 35-year career, in the same way that my thoughts on what makes a DJ, and it isn't vinyl that makes a DJ, it's the music. My thought process in regards to the internet may offend older people who feel that the internet is a hindrance. How I see it is, so back in the day, you would be in the record shop. In my case, I worked in a record shop and I met Joe from Labyrinth. In other DJs' cases, a perfect example is DJ Hype, who was on Fantasy FM in like 89, 90, and he was by far the best DJ in London at the time that everyone was hearing come through the radio, and everyone heard him through pirate radio, and it just elevated and elevated him. Everyone who, when I worked in the record shop, all they spoke about was DJ Hype on Fantasy FM. And then you had tapes. You had people who were putting out tapes everywhere, giving out tapes. Then you had, you know, people who would start getting their breaks. They'd be on flyers, and a lot of people would go out and flyer for the event that they was playing. So they'd stand out outside clubs giving out flyers, and there was a lot of ways in which we promoted ourselves. Now, I would be a fool. I would be an absolute fool at this point in time to not liken me doing a post on my social media going, here's a mix. Sometimes I'll do a mix of 10 tracks in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? That's like my mixtape. Sometimes I'll do a video going, I'll be at Moondance this weekend, or Clockwork Orange in Ibiza then, or Centerforce here, or Epidemic there, you know, and I'll do a video in which I'll say where I'm at. That's like me going out, giving out a flyer outside a club for those people when I was 17, 18, 19. All of these things that social media, I liken to pirate radio. I liken it to being in a record shop. I liken it to giving out flyers. And in the same way a DJ back in the day could make his name off of a tape that he would give out to promoters and ravers, or the same way in which a DJ could make his name through being on pirate radio, in the same way I made my name from meeting someone in a record shop. Social media is that. Social media is that. So young people and older savvy people who are doing full-length mixes for YouTube, all well produced, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Both young and old people like myself who are expressing their record collections or new music or what they do via social media, brilliant. Like back in the day as DJs, when we were getting, I mean, there's dub plates, there's white labels, there's music here that first time around I had the world exclusive of. I put stuff up on my channels that I'm the first person to have world exclusive, and we were called tastemakers then when we were playing music first, and when we were breaking music, and we were known as tastemakers.
I've never heard that before.
Right? So now what we are doing now with our internet is being tastemakers, or when we're pushing new music or showing people music that they never knew existed from the past. In the same way that you as an up and coming, when you're putting up your mixes from this room or little videos of you playing out, that's your flyer, that's your mix. So anyone who don't see any different have really got the whole thing confused. For me personally, like, I don't see the need for the disdain of how the modern internet works, because it's just a different way of conveying our messages than what we did back in the day.
Yeah, ultimately it shows your personality as well, like for people that haven't spoke to you or know who you are.
Yeah, look, there's you're always going to have introverted people, outroverted people. You're always going to have your loud people. You're always going to have your serious people, right? And, you know, I'm one of those loud people. But it doesn't mean that my loudness is the right way to do it. In the same way, there's some really serious, like, heads down music, and that works for them. There's no right or wrong way of how to play music or how to present music. Just because you might be a serious person and your favourite DJ might be a serious DJ who doesn't show any animation. That doesn't make that the right way. Yeah. That's just one style of doing it. Just because I'll walk out on stage at Clockwork Orange in a pink three-piece suit and scream and shout on the mic and jump up and down and rewind tunes, it doesn't make that the right way for me.
Yeah.
But there is many ways of DJing, just like there's many ways of genres of music, you know, many age groups, many different styles in which we go out raving and clubbing, whether it's at a festival, whether it's at an all-dayer, whether it's at a brunch, whether it's at an all-nighter, whether it's at a holiday abroad, whether it's in an illegal warehouse, whether it's the toilets in Ministry of Sound have been kicked in. There's many ways in which people can enjoy and express themselves through music.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to touch on is being a warm-up DJ. Obviously, I'm in the start of my journey. I think I've been DJing now for about 6 months.
Right.
And only recently in the last 2-3 months have I started playing out. Obviously, all of my sets are opening sets, they're warm-up sets.
Yep.
I enjoy doing them because I don't think I'm at a stage now where I'd feel ready to play to a bigger audience or a bigger crowd or follow up from a DJ. And I know you've wanted to speak about the art of warm-up and what a warm-up set should look like, and as well, you're not only a DJ, you're a promoter also. You put on your own event. So for someone doing a warm-up set, what do you look for? What's your advice to up-and-coming DJs doing warm-up sets?
I think warm-up sets are the best sets ever for a DJ to one, learn from, and two, play.
Yeah.
So I learned how to DJ to crowds as a warm-up DJ.
Yeah.
So when I was first given my break at Labyrinth, the sets would literally, I would start off 1 hour on a Friday, and on a Saturday, within 2, 3, 4 months, it was 2 hours. Within 6, 7, 8 months, I was doing the first 3 hours, 4 hours, and learning my ropes and learning the craft of DJing. And warm-up set is a magical, mystical set, right? And I was very fortunate in that I was in a club that was open every Friday and Saturday night. So not only did I hone my craft, I learned how to take a crowd on a journey through the whole thing, through having the music really like warm sounding music when they come in, like not hardly any hits if at all. Build it, learn how to like tease a crowd, drop them down, bring them up to the big massive peak time point, you know. So all of my styles of DJing I learned through the art of the warm-up, right, through taking the crowd on a journey. And it's, for me, it's the ultimate set, it's the ultimate musical expression, it's the ultimate place where you get to show people all of the music you love. So most promoters, as you know, when you come out with us, most promoters want me on last for the peak time of their fete. You wrap them up, Dan.
The big hands in the air moments.
Come on, Dan. You send them packing.
Yeah.
Or they want me on the middle, like that peak time big bit, like in the middle of the day at a festival or an event. And also in the old school world, like a big thing for a lot of promoters is either me then Rat Pack or Rat Pack then me. And it works for everyone, and it's this big massive boom, right? However, of course I'm a showman. There's a side of my DJing that is an absolute showman, and I will go and I will rise to the bait and I will put on the show and I will get on the mic like I used to when I was younger. You know what I'm like. Sometimes I'll turn up to a gig in a suit or you know,
stupid hats, stupid glasses.
I will put on a show when there is time for showmanship. But on the flip side of that, so a perfect example is Clockwork Orange, which is undoubtedly the biggest heritage house music event from back in the day, and the Ibiza heyday through to now. For my age group, it's the ultimate heritage house music event.
It's a great event.
Where whereas on my rave side, you have your moon dances, your labyrinths, your epidemics, your amnesia houses. On that old school heritage house Ibiza scene, you have Clockwork in the same way as on the 88, 89 scene, you have Central. So there's lots of excellent events that represent their thing, but Clockwork is this amazing 90s heritage house event. And they always put me on at their festivals, peak time. Bam. However, in their club events, and this is how my mind thinks as a DJ. So recently, I played for them in Brighton, and I was on much earlier than usual, and they put me on for much longer, a set. It was my most enjoyable Clockwork Orange set ever. Like, I dug into the racks, I really thought about it. I played some much deeper, like early 90s house and bleeps and bass and stuff that, as the person that most people put on last or most people put on after Rat Pack, I wouldn't play. And I was such in the vibe of like just music for music's sake, warm up music for the sake of good music, as opposed to being on peak time and playing the best music that everyone likes, the biggest music, and like like when you're on the end of a big event and every DJ from Rat Pack to Groove Rider and Fabio to Jeremy Healy to everyone, and when you're put on at the end, you have had the best of the best all on before you, so you have to come with the puff your chest out and be the showman. But by far my favourite style is the warm-up set, which after, like, I have a great relationship with Clockwork Orange. I love what they do. And yeah, I said to them, I haven't bullied them. I've said to them, can I have 2 hour sets at like much earlier on from now on, because I really, really like it. And this year in Ibiza and 338, they've given me much longer sets, and they for that earlier part of the night, as well as the normal amount of peak time sets that promoters would give me. But for me, I love the warm-up set, and anyone starting out needs to really learn that warm-up is where you teach yourself and teach people about your depth of music, and DJing isn't all about, and it's ironic when you think that in my world and the world that you've witnessed me in, I'm a guy who's used as the peak time guy, the end of either the peak time of the festival or the party or the end of night, send them all home. But actually my real heart is in being able to express far more musically in a longer warm-up set.
Yeah.
But the peak time is just part of the way of life.
I think probably for like a lot of up and coming DJs, like being a warm-up DJ can feel disheartening, which I don't feel that way. But obviously, if you're a warm-up DJ for a long time, like, do you think there's a certain kind of timeline which you should see yourself progress to not being a warm-up DJ or getting main slot times, or is it just all a journey and it all just depends? Everything's
a journey and everything's organic, right? And it's back to that. There's no size fits all. There's no this is what a DJ should be, this is what a DJ's career should look like. I think sadly we live in a time and we live in a world, especially when we're talking about DJing, where I come from an era where we just lived for the weekend and just wanted to see the rave scene carry on. When everyone said this can't last, the police are trying to stop it, the headlines in the newspaper are bad, there's hardly any clubs going on in 1990. We just lived for the weekend and believed that this, one of the big sayings was, the struggle will continue. We will keep on fighting for dancing all night whilst on ecstasy, listening to the original house and rave music, right? And there was no expectancy other than waiting for the weekend and going to the record shop. Whereas now, DJing is a career path, and after 35 years of me doing this, after coming up to 38 years of the UK having the catalyst of acid and rave, after this music, house music as it were, being 40 years old in its Chicago and Detroit origins, the rules are so different and the expectation is so high, because people hear these figures that XYZ DJ gets £1 million, that one gets 50 grand, that one gets 10 grand, that one gets 2 grand, and the expectancy is so high that people have forgotten. And actually rephrase that, they haven't forgotten, because how would they know? They've been brought into a world and seen a world where you can go to college and go to music schools to learn about the business of DJing as well as the how to DJ. So we live in a world where the expectancy is too high, so a warm-up set would seem so lowly to people when it's not. That's where the true art and the true craft is made.
I think it's good to set yourself goals but not expectations, because people see certain DJs that are now getting booked all over the world, but what they don't know is that DJ's been doing this for 10 years and they've only just got to a point now of where they're doing all these shows in Ibiza and all these big massive clubs, but it's not. I think, like, as a DJ that's just starting, there could be this like expectancy that, okay, that's going to be me in a year's time, but it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that.
But I think a lot of people might have that mindset of...
Yeah, look, I, as a promoter, which is a completely different side to what we do, I've always broke DJs down into 3 categories. There's your DJs who... I mentioned DJ Hype earlier. There's DJs who were so glaringly obvious and better than everyone else that they was only ever going to be huge from everyone first hearing them for the very first time on pirate radio or raves or events, that it was always set in stone that they would be huge. Then you had people who were good, were about and made some tunes and put themselves about and they had a bit of an inkling and a mind for, you know, we could make something of this. And I put myself in the 3rd category of just was a hobbyist and had no career brain or didn't realise that there was something in it. And actually, we started this interview where I said I couldn't mix, and I didn't even have a DJ name, so I had no expectations, and I completely learned on the fly. Eventually, all these years later, many people from all 3 categories have fallen by the wayside, and ultimately you learn, you get better, you become more determined, you hone your craft, your perfection, and when it's meant to be, you will get there. And sadly, people don't trust the process, or like the people who left their records in their loft, it wasn't meant to be for them because they wasn't dedicated or passionate enough.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that for you it wasn't a career path. At what stage or at what age in you DJing did that change for you? Because you touched on earlier, you've never had a normal job, you don't know what a 9 to 5 is, you've never worked like that in an office, or so at what stage, at what age did that change for you? And for people that don't know, Dad actually had I've got an older brother called Jack, and you was 19 at the time, so was at that age did you know that, okay, this is a career? Like,
I never, it never become a career, or I never realised what the how far I'd come, or
the potential,
or what I was making, or until the VAT and the tax man started knocking on the door in the late 90s, early 2000s, when you were 3 or 4 years of age, and I'd been doing this for like 10. Me and your mum had been doing this for 10, 12 years by that point, and I had no business acumen. I had no understanding of the VAT man. I had no understanding of the tax man. We lived in a housing association flat, but outside our flat, me and your mum had 70 grand's worth of cars, and the cars were worth more than our flat, and we were offered the right to buy on the flat, but we had no understanding of it. And it wasn't until we was making lots of money from my DJing, from my record labels, and not accounting for, you know, we wasn't doing accounts for, we wasn't declaring stuff, and we had no understanding of that. We were thrown into the rave and the music scene. Then all of a sudden the VAT and the tax man started knocking at our door, and then that was the realisation that, hang on a minute, we're over a decade down the line here, and my name's on all of these flyers at the time all over the world. The records that some of the records that I was releasing were going top 50 and top 60 in the charts from the sales that they were doing. I was getting offered major mix album deals with Virgin and Sony and Ministry of Sound, but my head still wasn't into that music is a business. It was just like, music's my life. Oh, VAT, tax, accountant, what do you mean? I just want to live for the weekend. And at that point I mean, how old were you when you was 3 and 4? How old would I have been? I would have been 25 maybe. I would have been 3 years younger than you are now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So I had no understanding of business, and it wasn't.
But you must have known that was your job, and you wasn't ever going to do any, like, did you ever think, I'm going to have to get a normal 9 to 5, or I'm going to have to do something else other than music? Did that ever occur to you or cross your brain?
Never in my life.
Yeah.
There was never ever a plan B. There was never. How could there be? I love music too much.
Yeah.
I love the weekend too much. And
did you ever, like, when you was younger or at school, for the short time that you did go to school, did you ever think of a career path, think of something that you wanted to do that wasn't music? Or no? Absolutely
not. I used to, from hearing the Electros, I had one turntable, I had a tape deck, and I used to play a record and then talk in between it in my bedroom as if I was a radio presenter, and then play the tape, then talk at the end of that. You know, I would have been 8 or 9 or 10, then talk at the end of that tape, and then put a record on. And it nothing else was ever part of the plan. Nothing could be part of the plan. Yeah.
So you did briefly just touch on the fact that you had record labels, you was doing a bit of producing. Do you think now in this, well, even back then, do you think producing and DJing go hand in hand? Do you think you have to produce to be a DJ and go further in your career?
I'm going to say sadly, yes. And the reason why I use the word sadly is because, again, back to when I started, DJs, producers produced, especially in sort of like the latter 80s, but it wasn't till the early 90s that we started realising whether that was your Frankie Knuckles, Larry Levans and people from America, or whether it was Todd Terry's a fine example. Then in sort of like the late 80s sort of scene, Rebel MC, who went on to be Congo Natty, a lot of people who were DJs were producing, but ultimately it kind of what people didn't produce to become DJs.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? People produced because they produced, and they've come from maybe a DJ background, especially a lot of the 80s people, but ultimately all these decades later, it's all part of the business plan, if you like, that is part of being a DJ and a producer. And if I'm truthful with you, my old school heritage and legacy and what drives me in the heritage world is undoubtedly the Labyrinth 90 to 95 era and my connection to Centreforce now, because it's kind of all part of the same era, the same timeline, and that period is I didn't produce. I never ever had any inkling to produce. It was just buying records and playing records. I didn't even have a DJ name when I first started out. But it wasn't until I met someone who said to me, you're Billy Daniel Bunter. Do you want to come in our recording studio? Even then I didn't. And I ended up going in to the studio with just another label and working with a guy called Optical, who's massive in drum and bass, Ed Russian Optical, and I went with some friends who were raving to me at Labyrinth, JDS, and we made some tunes. Even then I didn't want to make tunes. It was never part of the plan, and that was a huge turning point for me once in the mid-90s, once I had some, at the time they were big dance floor tunes, and that's what propelled me outside of London. But again, it wasn't part of the plan. I just happened to find myself in a studio with these people, and then it propelled me. And then, like with everything, like with waiting to DJ from one weekend to the next, it then become, I like this, making tunes, and then made more tunes. And the same as with promoting. I need to promote my label. I need to put on events with the up and coming artists who I'm supporting, and then before you know it, you're in these organic situations that are born out of the love for music. And music has many creative paths that it takes you down. So when you're into music, it takes you in so many directions, whether that's into a recording studio, whether that's onto the decks, whether that's a mix album, whether that's promoting a gig, whether that's releasing and writing your own book, whether that's going into documentaries or film, whether that's how you do your content on the internet or radio shows or podcasts. When you're into music, the possibilities of everything happening organically and you moving forward and in all these different they're endless. Music gives you endless possibilities.
Yeah. So I think one last thing to touch on before we close this off is you're actually sober. How many years have you been sober now?
7.5 years.
So obviously that is a very personal choice. It's a very personal thing. But how do you find being sober in a world of drugs, alcohol? How, like, when you go to DJ, obviously everybody around you is drunk, or how have you found that transition from being someone who, I think I remember once Dad was DJing at Festival and he had a bottle of Jack Daniels on his rider, and I'm not even kidding, he literally downed the whole bottle of Jack Daniels during this set. So for someone who did that, and alcohol was I would say alcohol was a big part of your show and like your showmanship of like, I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to do shots, I'm going to drink. And when you do your social media videos and you say, I'm doing a radio show today, you'd be having the Jack Daniels bottle and cheersing. Like, how have you found that transition from drinking to not drinking, and how do you find it being around people that obviously are not sober in this scene?
It doesn't really bother me, to be fair. It doesn't really faze me. From the very first rave I DJ'd in, I've been surrounded by people who have been off their face, ultimately. And I don't judge anyone. It doesn't faze me. It doesn't want me to have a drink. It doesn't make me want to get on it. It's just part of it. It's part of club culture, rave culture, festival culture. You know, people go out to have a good time, and it doesn't. I don't feel anything toward people who do or don't do it. I don't think, get away from me. Yeah. I've not had a drink for 7 years. How dare you come into my face with, you know what I mean? It is what it is.
But obviously that's the stage right now. But when you first started doing it, did you ever struggle? Was you ever tempted?
No, I wasn't. I really wasn't. I'd made up my mind. That was it. And yeah, off I went. And I think I DJ far better. I think I enjoy it more. I think I enjoy myself more now than I've ever enjoyed myself doing it. I think Do you know what? It's quite interesting because, you know, like your memories come up on Facebook. So the other day, well, all the time memories come up from, like, I'll put up my gigs from 10 years ago or 12 years ago and 8 years ago. And it reminds me of, like, how busy I've always been with it. And sometimes flyers come up and things go, and I think, wow, I forgot all about that one, and I forgot about that one, and I forgot about that one. And oh, wow, like something come up where I had 7 gigs in a bank holiday weekend, like 10 years ago, or when we was watching that Ministry of Sound interview from 20 years ago, and the interviewer said, how do you see yourself in 20 years time? And I said, well, at the moment I play old school events, house events, hard dance events, and I was reeling off and saying, well, I hope that in 20 years time I'll still be playing all this music, right? But now I honestly think that I enjoy it more than ever. Not only do I enjoy it more than ever, I think I'm actually better at it. And I also think that if I didn't enjoy it as much as I did, I don't think the amount of people who book me would book me. And I don't think if I'm very proud of, like, of Yes going to, like, your Clockwork Oranges and your Boomtown, Centreforce, Moondance, Epidemic, our own Rave Story events, you know, like Rejuvenation, like the bigger events, the bigger events. Like, I'm very grateful that those bigger people who have other name DJs from back in the day, like, grateful that they have me. But I think something that makes me really proud is when I take on lots of regional gigs in smaller areas where it's just me and some local friends who are putting on the party, and like most weekends all of those places that I go to are packed out, and it's just me DJing, you know, and they could be your smaller 150 to 300 people things, and I'm very conscious all the time of keeping those gigs on to go to local areas all around the country. And that makes me proud when I go to those things and they're well attended and the promoters are like, we've sold out. And, you know, compared to some of the events I do that are thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are festivals or bigger things, those smaller clubs that I play are important, and they tap into parts of my heritage and history that I might not be able to express at a bigger event. And that makes me proud to know that after 35 years I can still go to all of these regional places and they be well attended.
You've actually stolen my very last question, which was going to be, as a DJ in your 35 years, you've played all over the world, you've played big festivals, you've done Glastonbury, you've just touched on doing smaller shows. What is your favourite kind of event or kind of venue to play at? Is it the big capacity ones? Is it the smaller capacity ones? Or
I haven't got a favourite. I just like playing music. Because ultimately,
typical answer.
No, it's not a typical answer though, because
people want you to say Ibiza.
No, because I could go up on stage and perform to thousands and thousands of people, put on a full show, and just be in the buzz of that showmanship, coming out the front of the stage, getting on the mic, rewinding a tune, getting everyone with their hands in the air, getting people holding their hands to the person next to them, playing big tune after big tune, and you know, I can rise to the occasion. Just get me up there. But then put me in an underground basement or a small local club where I've got like 90 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours, and it's sweaty and my glasses are coming off my head, and I can go in and there's no expectation, and I've not had like big DJs before and after, and it's like, and I can just vibe and I can just take a crowd to it. And I wouldn't turn up to that gig in a suit with a hat with a feather out the side. I wouldn't turn up to that gig in a 3-piece pink suit.
No.
You know, I like t-shirt, jeans, shove me in a corner. I don't care who can see me, who don't see me. Let me mix, let me play, boom, and I get just as much a buzz out of that as I do the big stages, and there really is not like the thing with music, like I've said a few times, no one size fits all. Like being on a big stage to thousands of people don't all of a sudden mean my career's going to skyrocket and that's it. I'm going to treble my money, and I'm in the same way that like going to a smaller gig is not like beneath me doing big things. They're all as important as each other. It's all like DJing, playing music to people. That buzz, whether you're connecting a record that you love to one person or 1,000 people, we're here to make people dance.
What a great way to end it. Thank you so much. I think this is the first time ever in my almost 27 years of life that we've sat down and had a serious conversation. But we're going to carry this on, aren't we? We hope to do more of these. This is an hour long. There's so much more to cover.
There's lots of things to cover. There's lots of things to talk about. I think it's a very interesting thing that you want to do. It gives two great perspectives of a young up and coming and what you face in the social media world being a young woman.
Yeah.
You can, no doubt, what you can delve into my mind about older people and younger people can find interesting.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things that I take for granted, and you might even take for granted because you've heard the conversations, you know how me and Mum work, you've been around this for your entire life, and there's a lot of things that may just be just everyday things for me, that may have become everyday things for you, that hopefully in your journey as an up and coming DJ, there's going to be a lot of questions that people find interesting answers to.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me on your podcast.